Good morning, everyone. We're still waiting for a few more people to join us. The numbers are climbing, so we're going to give it another minute or two for people to join the line. If you're joining us this morning, welcome to the New Jersey State Advocacy Day. We're so excited to have you here with us today. If you could pop into the chat box, if you can select everyone in that chat box to everyone and tell us where you're coming from today. Tell us, share your name and share where you're coming from in the state of New Jersey. We'd like to give you a big welcome. Seeing folks from all across the state, from way up north to all the way down in the Cape May area. Welcome, everyone. So excited to see so many people joining us. Again, we're going to give it just another minute or two for a few folks to get on the line. Thank you for putting your name and your hometown into the chat box and sharing that with everyone. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for putting your hometown into the chat box. I think we will kick it over to you, Pat.
Thank you, Karen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Pat Tadeo, and I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Alzheimer's Association, Greater New Jersey and Delaware Valley chapters. Welcome to our 2022 New Jersey State Advocacy Day, and thank you for joining us. Today's program, during the program, your microphones and cameras are going to be muted to minimize any distractions and allow for attendees to focus on the program. However, we do welcome your questions, and please type them in the chat box feature at the bottom of your screen and in the Q&A button. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Ms. Cheryl Ricky Francione, our Executive Director of the Greater New Jersey chapter, to welcome you and get us started today. Cheryl?
Thank you so much, Pat. I'm very excited to be here with all of you this morning. We're so grateful to our state legislators and our colleagues at the Department of Human Services and the Division of Aging for the good work that you're doing and for having your eye on constant improvement to support the people who are on the dementia journey. We're also extremely grateful to our advocates, many of whom who are on the line with us today. You'll hear some of their very compelling stories, and their voices matter. They represent the 190,000 people in New Jersey living with this disease, and the more than 361,000 who are caring for them selflessly. So we appreciate all of you. We're going to get some good work done together today, and thank you for making time in your day to ensure that that happens. Pat?
Thank you, Cheryl. At this time, I'm really excited to kick things off by welcoming our Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver for our keynote comments. Unfortunately, Lieutenant Governor was unable to be with us in person. However, she has provided us with this video. I believe you'll find her comments compelling and supportive of our efforts.
Hello, I'm Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver. I'm excited to join the Alzheimer's Association Delaware Valley and Greater New Jersey chapters for the New Jersey Virtual State Advocacy Day. I am honored that your organization would think of me when it comes to speaking to health and caregiver issues in New Jersey regarding Alzheimer's disease. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to address the 190,000 New Jerseyans living with Alzheimer's disease or a related dementia, their caregivers, and other key stakeholders in New Jersey. Here are some things we know about Alzheimer's disease in New Jersey. It is the most common cause of dementia, and there is currently no cure. We know that the estimated number of Alzheimer's patients in New Jersey will jump from 190,000 in 2021 to approximately 210,000 by the year 2025. 361,000 caregivers in New Jersey gave an estimated 686 million hours of unpaid care to people living with Alzheimer's in 2021. Over 27% of those caregivers live with depression, and 13% are in poor physical health. That is why this is an incredibly important day for this group. I would like to talk about some of my own thoughts about the impacts of Alzheimer's disease on our state and what we can do better to make it easier for the caregivers. I'd like to share that I have a cousin who wrote a book about her experience with her parents. She named the book Breakfast with Bubby because every Saturday she would go have breakfast at her mom's house with her dad. And it took her a while, but by not seeing her mother every day, she then connected the dots that her mother was suffering from Alzheimer's. And at the end, she moved her mom in with her family, and they all got up one morning, and her mom couldn't be found. And they eventually found her mom back at the neighborhood that her mom raised her family in when she was married with children, and she was curled up in the garage. It was kind of cold and frigid that night, and she developed hypothermia, and that is how she passed. Those are some of the challenges that families and caregivers experience all the time. As a former member of the state legislature and Speaker of the House, I understand the need for state leaders such as myself to speak out, advocate for, and help promote awareness of Alzheimer's disease. I understand that early detection can be the key to longevity and improved outcomes when it comes to this disease, which is why I am always on the side of screenings, preventative care, and early intervention. An Alzheimer's diagnosis is devastating news for individuals and their loved ones, and it is the state's obligation to help them through the process of navigating the state's Alzheimer's disease and dementia care system. Caring for loved ones can be a difficult path, but Alzheimer's is not a life sentence. Millions of people are living meaningful lives with this diagnosis, and there are many treatments that can improve their outcomes and their quality of life. As the number of people living with Alzheimer's disease increases nationally and in New Jersey, we must work harder to meet their needs and the needs of those who are caring for them. Based on the statistics I mentioned earlier, we know that the act of caregiving can take a serious emotional and physical toll on the caregiver, and that the work they do is vitally important to the quality of life for many. We recognize that caregivers often devote their entire lives to their loved ones, which can often mean missing out on work and wages. I signed a bill as acting governor that created a New Jersey caregiver task force within the Department of Human Services. This task force was created to identify ways to support people who are taking care of loved ones. The goal of this task force is to determine the availability of caregiver support services in the state and provide recommendations for the improvement and expansion of such services. Members of this task force represent unpaid caregivers who provide care to individuals with a wide range of needs, including older Americans and those with mental illness, disabilities, chronic health conditions, cognitive or behavioral challenges, intellectual and developmental disabilities, and Alzheimer's disease. The task force has been working on conducting a survey, holding listening sessions to solicit and receive testimony from caregivers on their experiences, and is compiling resources to create an inventory of existing state policies, resources, and programs that are available to support or assist caregivers. Governor Murphy and I are committed to supporting caregivers and improving programs that can help them. And we are committed to supporting and advocating for those who are living with Alzheimer's disease. Thank you. Hello, I'm Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Oliver, for your inspiring words. They're so much appreciated. At this time, I am honored to introduce to you a couple of our advocates who are going to give you a little bit about their story. Today we have with us Doreen Monks and Ron Enfield, who will offer their perspectives as someone living with Alzheimer's and as a caregiver. First up, Doreen. Doreen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Doreen Monks, excuse me, and I live in Livingston, New Jersey. As you can tell from my accent, I'm a born and bred Jersey girl, and lived born in Jersey and will die in Jersey. I'm also a retired neuroscience nurse practitioner and program director for a local stroke center in northern New Jersey. It was a program that I developed. And in 2015, just prior to my 62nd birthday, I was diagnosed with younger onset Alzheimer's disease. And shortly after my birthday, I was forced to leave my job. The diagnosis is, it's a hard stop in your life. Everything you thought the future was going to be just blanks out. And it took a while to kind of come to grips with that and to put my affairs in order and to then sit back and decide, what do I do next? I had two choices. I could sit back and just wait for the archangels to come and wallow, or I could take advantage of the fact that I was diagnosed so early. I have a very dear friend who was a neurologist who basically walked across the hall one day, knocked on my door and said, "Hey, Doreen, there's a problem. We got to work on it." And that's why I was diagnosed much, much earlier than most people are. And to me, it was imperative that I take advantage of that gift of early diagnosis, not only to fulfill my life, but more importantly, to use it to the benefit of those with the diagnosis who can't speak for themselves. So I focused on these three things. One was, again, to be spokesperson for those with the disease who can't speak for themselves, and to show them that you can have a life after diagnosis. While this is now still a fatal disease, it's not a death sentence. As the Lieutenant Governor said, you have a chance, and I do have a very fulfilling, happy life. Is it the one I thought I would have? Absolutely not. But I'm living the good life, and I'm happy, and I want others to have that chance. The other thing that was really important for me is to get Alzheimer's out of the shadows and out of the corner. It's beyond time for the disease to be recognized, to be understood, and to be dealt with. This no longer can be swept under the rug. We can't push it away as something that happens to old people and it's normal. There's so much more we can do if we truly, truly recognize the disease for what it is and its impact. And finally, most important to me is the need for early diagnosis. I was lucky, I have a friend. Not everybody has a friend who's a neurologist, but everybody should. There should be, we go to the doctors and we get, annual EKGs and we get annual blood work and we get our blood pressure checked and we get depression screening done. Why by the age of 40 isn't everyone getting a mini mental status exam once a year as a baseline? I was lucky because this person knew me well enough to know early on that there was a problem going on. But this is an insidious disease. It doesn't toot a horn and for recognition. It sneaks up on you in the dark of the night. If we had some way to better recognize the onset of disease earlier, that's something I certainly wish for. I go to bed and I wake up in the morning and I think, today's the day. Today's the day there's going to be a treatment. Today's the day there's going to be a cure. And I'm hopeful each of those every day I wake up. So we need your support. We need our legislators to sit back and support not myself and my fellow New Jerseyans who are living with disease and those who care for us. The burden as a caregiver is overwhelming and equally, if not sometimes more than having the disease itself. So please support us and keep us hopeful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doreen. Appreciate your comments. And right now, I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Ron Enfield. Ron is going to give you a different perspective as a caregiver. Ron?
There. Thank you very much. I hope you can see me now and hear me. I come from the West Coast and I spent more than half my life in New Jersey. So I'm not quite a native, but close, as Southern California terms it. And I had a wonderful wife who was brought down by dementia. I cared for her full time as her life ended. An Alzheimer's Association support group helped me to cope with that burden and to learn ways to be a better caregiver for my wife and care for myself so I could be there for her. When the Alzheimer's Association finds a way to end this disease, support groups will still need to help the caregivers who deal with it now. I want to reach people with that message. My wife, Diane, had a tough life as a teenager, and the kids she hung with were lucky if they reached old age. Diane pulled herself out of that crowd and went from a passing student in reform school to an honor student in college. Before I met her, Diane was a single mother living with her little baby, Jennifer. For the sake of that girl, Diane resolved to change herself, and she did. I met her after that. We married, had another daughter, and we raised the two of them while we saw the world together, successful and happy. Years later, the girls and I noticed changes in Diane's memory and behavior. And when she went for tests in 2008, she was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. She was likely to develop Alzheimer's disease within 10 years. By 2012, I was retired and caring for her full time. As Diane's condition worsened, I ran out of ideas for dealing with her behavior, and I ran low on energy. I looked around for ways to get help. A local weekly newspaper had a notice for an Alzheimer's support group, Spouses Helping Spouses. I called the leader of the group and I started going to meetings. The group included men and women taking care of their wives and husbands with Alzheimer's. They met every week. Usually someone there had the same experience as I did, and they gave me practical advice on what to expect, what to do, and what not to do. They helped me through 6 years of caregiving with advice, listening, and encouragement. Diane died in 2018. By then, she had lost her memory, lost her abilities, and even lost the daughter who was once her reason to live. Jennifer died before her in 2015 due to heart disease from cancer. We never told Diane about it. She never knew Jennifer was gone, and she never felt the pain of losing her. Whenever Diane would ask, I told her Jennifer was working on a big project in California, and she'd be back after that. She stopped asking eventually. After Diane died, I wrote and published a book about our lives. It was called Incorrigible. She was labeled that as a teenager. The book tells in detail about our experiences as I cared for her with dementia. I kept going to our support group meetings. By then, I didn't need advice on caregiving, but I could still help those who were caring for others. I also helped run the meetings. When the pandemic shut us down in 2020, we couldn't hold meetings in person. I started a weekly Zoom group so we could keep meeting and helping each other. By now, the virtual meetings include members in New Jersey, Maryland, and North Carolina. We just began having in-person meetings again in the group, and we'll probably have 15 or 20 members every week. But some of our members can't attend in person because they can't get away from caregiving to go to meetings. So we continue to hold meetings online as well as in person. Caregiving for people with Alzheimer's is hard, and it goes on all day and night, all year long. The support group I joined helped me cope with the stresses of caregiving and take better care of my wife and myself. Caregivers need this kind of support. Many of our new members tell us how tough it is to get through a maze of requirements, facilities, and available care. We need to know what kind of support we can get. The number of people who need this information will keep increasing as our population grows older. One of my goals is that caregivers will learn what help is available and how, when, and where to get it when they need it. Peer-driven support groups like ours cost almost nothing to run. They provide a valuable way to share experiences, problems, and solutions. Most caregivers are too stressed and too busy with their duties to speak out for what they need. We need more groups, and caregivers need to know about them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorian and Ron, for your thoughtful and poignant discussion of how Alzheimer's has impacted your lives. Your stories, like all the others we're going to hear today, are all too familiar. Through research and continued advocacy, we can change the script for others going forward. Now, since we're here today to advance public policy, I'd like to offer a brief overview of the legislation that we are advocating for in Trenton. These two bills will help position New Jersey as a dementia-friendly state. The first bill, S1241/A2330, that's the Public Policy Awareness Campaign. This is important for a lot of reasons, but I'm just going to give you a short overview of what it's about. The bill would require dementia-specific training and materials for judicial staff, police officers, firefighters, social services, and emergency service providers to assist them in responding to needs of persons with disease while performing their duties. If enacted, the legislation would also establish an Alzheimer's public awareness and education program to promote the value of early detection and diagnosis. The campaign will ensure educational materials are available to the public through local boards of health, physicians, hospitals, and clinics. The other piece of legislation that we're promoting is S1033, A2682. Establishes an Alzheimer's disease awareness and dementia long-term planning commission. The commission would analyze the state's current needs. It would also check, resources and make recommendations for improvements in areas such as support to those living with the disease and those caring for loved ones in treatment. The commission's ultimate goal is to create a more dementia-friendly New Jersey for our residents and their caregivers. You can see why these bills are so critical to our community. One of the bill sponsors in the Assembly, Assemblyman McCursia, was unable to be with us today. However, he did send us a video, and I'd like to share that with you at this moment.
Hi, I'm State Assemblyman Raj Mukherjee, and I want to thank all of you for participating in Alzheimer's Awareness Day. I'm a proud sponsor of Assembly Bill 82330, which would establish a statewide public awareness campaign about Alzheimer's disease, because promoting public awareness and early detection is directly related to improving our ability to detect and manage not only Alzheimer's disease, but also mild cognitive impairment, which is often an early stage of Alzheimer's disease that 80% of Americans aren't aware of. With 6.5 million Americans currently living with Alzheimer's disease, and 1 in 3 seniors dying with Alzheimer's or another dementia, the importance of enhancing our understanding and early detection and management is so important, not only to those living with Alzheimer's and dementia, but to the families and the caregivers that this terrible disease takes such a toll on. So thank you for what you're doing, and you can write your lawmaker to co-sign and sponsor 82330 and help us shepherd this bill into law.
Thank you, Assemblyman. We're very fortunate to have two of the bill sponsors with us here today. Senator Joseph Vitale, Chairman of the Health, Human Services, and Senior Citizens Committee, and sponsor of the Long-Term Planning Commission legislation, and Deputy Speaker Pro Tem Annette Chaparro, who, along with Assemblyman Mukherjee, is prime sponsor of the Public Awareness Campaign. I'm honored to ask our special guests to join us and share their thoughts with you today. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be part of this. Should I just begin?
Well, no. I guess one of the things that we'd like to do, I thought maybe we could have this more of a conversation, if you will. Okay. So we appreciate you being with us. Could you speak to your personal connection to the disease?
My personal connection is my father has dementia, and he's in a nursing home. And when I first announced I was going to run for assembly, my father, that's when it started. That's really when it started. And I remember this clearly. I was the one always with, there's 6 of us, right? I have 5 other siblings, and I was the one always up and down with my father, taking him to Social Security and going shopping with him. There's always that one sibling that's connected at the hip, right? And I lived in Hoboken, he lived in Hoboken, so I was it, and we chatted all the time. And I remember telling him that I was running for office, and after he laughed hysterically, because we would just talk about politics. We weren't really that involved in politics. And I said, I'm gonna try. I remember this because his birthday is November 2nd. It was my very first election. And I stopped by just to say hello. And I was on my way, go campaigning. And I said to him, Pop, I can't stay long. I'm just going to, say hello, drop off some food, and I got to keep going. Election is tomorrow. And he says, oh, okay. And I remember this clear because he just casually, as I'm walking out the door, he says to me, oh, I want to show you something. And I said, okay. And he lifts his pants, right? And he shows me this big gash on his leg. And I remember this clearly because it freaked me out. I'm saying, oh my God, how did that happen? What is this? Needless to say, I didn't go campaigning. I took him to the hospital, but he couldn't remember how he got it or what happened to him. And I remember being upset with him. Like, how could he not remember how it happened? And I say this because I feel guilty about that, right? I feel guilty that that I was sorry, sorry, this brings me back. So
Understandable.
I felt guilty that I was angry with him, saying, how do you not remember what happened to you? We thought it was diabetes because then he was then diagnosed with diabetes. And we know that that's when you get hurt, the wound is doesn't heal right. So we took it as that, but I was still harping on why he couldn't remember. Why was he so nonchalant about it? And then I said, okay, I can't, my father was always, everything was a joke. Nothing was serious. Everything was a joke. So the more I questioned him and got angry at him, the more he just made a joke about it. So then I just said, oh, let me just make sure that he eats right. So we fast forward. I couldn't do as much with him as I wanted to. So like I said, there's 6 of us. So my brother, who I say is the hero of this family because he really stepped in and took over and started taking care of my dad. We started to test him and do all these things. And then he was diagnosed with dementia. And we just couldn't figure out how he missed it or what happened or how, and most of it was on me, right? You have, sometimes you have, families can be a blessing and they can be like a pain. And you're just like, I had 5 others, well, really 4 others, because my brother kind of understood, but I had 4 other siblings looking at me saying like, how'd you miss it? You're always with him. What happened? Like, and then I just finally said, why don't you just, you just get off your, asses and just try to be involved and not judge me. But we had to really make some choices. And sometimes when there's so many of us, everybody has their opinion. And I had a colleague of mine also that was dealing with this. And there's so many different forms. Like her mom had Alzheimer's and she just recently passed away. And it was such a long journey for her. And I felt bad for her because we worked across from each other. She sat right in front of me. Her mom was violent with her. She would have outbursts. And I just could see my colleague just going through, and I would say to her, because my father's in a nursing home, but he's not violent. He's more of he's peaceful, right? He's nosy. He's in everybody's business, but he's peaceful. And my colleague, I felt so bad for her because she used to have caretakers go to the home. They would leave. They would quit. They would just leave because they couldn't handle it, and that's part of how we need to just make sure that caretakers have the right tools, that the pays are right, that everything there, it's really, really hard. You could imagine if you love one, you're caring for them and it's so hard and you're trying your best. Imagine a stranger that's trying to do their job and doing this for your family member. So we have to really understand that and walk in someone's shoes to know that we have a lot of work to do. And a lot of the things is out of sight, out of mind. That's with anything. If you're not dealing with this in one form or another, you just will hear the stories and you'll go, oh, I feel for them. But as soon as this is over, you're going to forget unless you're touched by it personally. And I think that we need to be persistent. And if I didn't deal with it, I would, of course, be compassionate about it. I would, of course, want to, again, do something, get on bills. But you have to really walk in someone's shoes to really understand the magnitude of it and how it impacts families, how it impacts a community. And that's why I think it's not just giving the care to families and caretakers. It's a community effort. We always say it takes a village. It really does take a village, especially with something like this, because my colleague would get a call from the police saying, your mom just called 911 again. She's saying she's being held captive. She's screaming help, but they knew her. So they knew that already. So that's why it's important that we do these things so people know what to look for, whether it's police, whether it's fire, whether it's the man in the bodega on the corner, whether it's, you know, your neighbor, that everyone is alert. And most importantly, we have to keep them safe, right? Because when someone has dementia, especially if they live alone, they have caretakers, that doesn't mean criminals are not going to prey on them. So we have to be very careful of all these things. And I say that because I remember when my father was diagnosed, before he went into a nursing home, you know, I used to have to check in on him. Sometimes I would find him on, you know, he fell and he would stay on the floor and all these things. But I remember they used to go into the senior building and they used to knock on doors to try to get them to switch to some kind of, you know, Verizon or some kind of other plan. And I used to be so angry because I used to say, do not knock on my dad's door. Do not. He can't sign for anything. Don't ask him for anything. But that's me, one voice. And I'm thinking, I should be knocking on everybody's door in this building because I don't know who has what. And these are all things that just kind of make me think how important, you know, these two bills are. I don't know why I'm not on one bill, but I am going to get on it. But it's
Appreciate
very
that.
important. Yes, no, it's so important. And we just need to be, just scream it from the top of our lungs and keep going at it because everyone is touched by it. You don't know. And I have to tell you, I'm guilty of that for myself. Knowing that my father has dementia, knowing that these things happen, when I go to the doctor and I feel there's like certain things that, you know, you're forgetful about certain things. Now, you would think you're more aware of it. I don't know why, but every time I go to the doctor, they sit there, they tell you, so what are you feeling? You forget half of the things why you're there. You just go, oh, I'm okay. Unless it's pain, physical pain, you really kind of dismiss a lot of the other things that can really, really get you on the right path to make sure that you have all the right tools, that you are properly diagnosed. So I really highly recommend that you do write that down, what's a notebook, a journal, whatever, everything you're feeling every day as a practice, because take it with you. It's important because some of the key things that you do not tell or share with your doctor, remember your doctor doesn't live with you. So he doesn't know everything that happens, but you have to really be honest about it. Don't be embarrassed about anything. Don't self-diagnose yourself. Step away from the computer because I Google everything and think, oh, it's just this, that's just that. Just really go to your doctor and share it. It's important. And I'm really here for anything and everything I can possibly do. And if that means badgering my colleagues in the caucus, that's what I will do.
Well, that's really a great lead into my second question. So, and this was not planned, so thank you very much. My second question to you is, last session, we had these identical bills and we got that close. We just
Right.
couldn't get it over the finish line. Can you share a little bit maybe of your thought process? You know, you did mention why it's so important to you to sponsor, but why do you think this year might be different? Why are we going to get it over the finish line this time?
I think the dynamic is different, a little different now. I mean, I think we did just get through a pandemic, right? So, and I don't want this to come off wrong, but I think everyone shield themselves. COVID. So it delayed a lot of things. It put other things as priority, but this should have been part of the priority because COVID, this should have been part of the priority.
Mhm.
I think that now that we are, you know, with all these federal funding that we're having, this money that's coming in, the budget being part of it, that we really need to dive in and what can we do? How do we step up? This is the perfect opportunity for us to the most vulnerable populations, that everyone just to be aware of it. This has to be it. You cannot do. What would be the reason to delay this again? I mean, I just can't imagine why would we say, oh, we didn't make it this session. Well, it should be a priority. We do have to make this a priority. You never know when it's going to come knocking on your door. I hope it never comes knocking on your door, but you really do need to love your neighbor, love yourself, and just really be all hands on. Every little bit that someone in a community can do, it helps the load be that much lighter. So we really do need to make this a priority. It's going to be a priority for me, and I will continue to fight for it. My colleague, Raj Mukherjee, he's no wallflower, so I'm sure that we will be, and it has to be both houses, right? So it can't
Right.
not just be the assembly. We know that. And that's part of my frustration in legislation. It's like, yay, it's a victory over here. And they're like, oh, wait a minute, it has to go over there. And then wait a minute, the governor has to sign. I can't imagine the governor not signing this. So we just have to do our part, both houses, and I'm sure that the governor will sign it.
Appreciate that. Yes, we were encouraged by the lieutenant governor's remarks too, that I'm hopeful and feel confident that once we get it out of both houses, that it would receive favorable reception from the front office. So as someone who's not only dealing with it personally, but just what you're seeing from, through your constituent work and just as you go around the state, what are some of the challenges, in addition to what you may have spoken about already, that you see citizens in New Jersey who are living with Alzheimer's right now and for their caregivers? What are some of those challenges that you're seeing out there?
I'm going to say cost, right? If you don't have money, or if you don't have the funding already, right? You know that that's going to be a challenge in itself. But even if you had the money, it's nursing homes. There's not enough proper care. There's a shortage of that. There's a shortage on caregivers. They're not being paid enough. The resources for them. There are so many challenges. I mean, it's a massive list. There are, just because you have the means, even if you had the means and the tools, that in itself it's such a task, and you have to be prepared for it. I mean, we're just human. We're all just human beings, and you feel guilty. Like I felt guilty. It's just you beat yourself up because you feel like you failed in some way. But how would I know? How would I think that was possible? But we do have there's so many challenges. It was very hard for us as a family to make that decision. It's important to give someone that's dealing with this disease the comfort of being in their home and being familiar. That's important. That's key. And if we have a shortage of senior housing, or the tools, everything that's going on, and people are waiting, it's massive. That's why it's important that these two bills are passed, that there is a public awareness, that there is a commission that could do the studies and know what to do next. We have to chip away at it. Can we fix it overnight? Absolutely not. But we have to start chipping away at it, because we do know what the challenges are. There's so many challenges. And I know that if there's not enough nursing homes to put someone that's severe with that. I mean, my father, I would think it's not severe because he still remembers us. There are times he doesn't, but he's not violent. He's not, and he's in a nursing home. So the only problem we had is that we couldn't get a caretaker for him. That was when he was home. He would, like I said, he was always nosy, even before dementia. He always wanted to look out in the hallway. He always wanted to knock on a neighbor's door. He always wanted to see what was happening. So we couldn't trust that. Or we couldn't trust that he wouldn't remember, not to touch that pot that he's trying to boil something or burn something. There was just a lot of things like that. But we didn't have somebody to come home. But it's heavy with me. And I live in an apartment and we didn't have enough room. So there was a lot of things, a lot of challenges, but we do need to take step by step. And the ones that do have a home, that can stay home, that need the tools, and whether it's a caretaker, helping a family member out, shifts, whatever it is, that's what we should do first, right? Because at least they have a home and they're willing to go there. And then the other stuff, we just kind of go along with it. But there's so many challenges. I mean, I couldn't just pinpoint one, but community engagement is important too. I think public awareness is key, but I think we need to make sure that our communities are, we talk about many things, right? Our communities are pedestrian safety. I would love to see our communities are, Alzheimer's disease safety with a big purple heart. This is our community are proud of. It really does take a village, and I think that we should start doing that with every organization, that each person could do their part.
That's great. And for our audience, the senator's having a little bit of technical difficulty, so he's trying to get in. So as soon as he's able to, we will certainly bring
Well,
him
I'm in.
up.
If you can hear me,
Oh,
I'm in.
great, Senator. How are you? Now we can hear you.
Just that my fine, thank you. Just that my video is, I'm driving, so I just prefer we just do the audio if that's okay.
That's awesome. And we have Assemblywoman Chaparro here with you, sir.
Yeah, Harris, Assemblywoman, how you doing?
Hi, Senator. How are you?
Good,
So,
thanks.
I'm going to ask you a couple of same questions, if you don't mind, that I've just asked the Assemblywoman. The first one we had asked her, and she spoke eloquently about her experience with her dad. And I know as the chair, you've been chair of the Health Committee for some time. I'm sure you've heard a lot of experiences that different people have had with different issues. What was the impetus that helped you decide to sponsor the bill?
Well, we saw that the bill was sponsored in the Assembly, and sometimes these issues are brought to my attention, and it was really, I mean, no one really didn't want to hesitate in terms of sponsoring the bill and trying to be a part of moving it forward. So it was really that simple. And we don't do that all the time. We pick and choose what bills we think are a priority, and this certainly is one on the list. So it went fairly far last session. We're pretty confident this time we'll get it through to the finish line. So, I mean, for all the reasons that, Assemblyman Maherji and the Assemblywoman Chaparro had indicated or articulated, for all those reasons, we need to. So,
there you go.
It passed unanimously, I'm sure. It's just a matter of, getting it done, putting it on the agenda, making it a priority, which we will do. And I think it's in, I don't know what committee it's in the Assembly, but my committee is all things health related. So it's health, human services, and senior citizens, and children, and everyone else in between. So it'll be a priority. I don't have intimate personal experience with Alzheimer's, though I do know friends and family members and others who have that experience. And you hear the stories. I don't need to tell you what those stories are like, and they can be mild and they can be awful. And Annette's story is one of probably millions across the country. And so the other thing too, I think, is that we forget about is that a lot of folks who suffer from Alzheimer's disease also have other co-occurring health issues. So heart disease, kidney disease, all those things that are just piled on top of that. And so you're not just dealing with the Alzheimer's issue, you're dealing with all the other co-occurring issues that present their own unique challenges. And if you're that patient and you have some level of awareness, it's obviously overly frustrating and difficult for them, and for the families as well. I mean, it falls on the families so many times. Some of them talked about our nursing home issues and our institutional care, which is in some places good, in some places really poor. We have a shortage of caregivers. They're underpaid, underappreciated, not by us for sure. But if we don't pay them well, you don't attract good caregivers, you don't retain good caregivers, and the care suffers. And at the end of the day, that's what matters most, is the care that people receive in a nursing home or any other long-term care facility or at home. And so this bill, one of the bills, at least in terms of the study, will really identify, I think, in a meaningful way. We pared down the number of members so we can have briefer conversations, but really get to the heart of what it is that we need to do to enhance the care for those suffering, not just for the patient, but also for the families who provide the care or worry about them, every minute they're awake.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, on the phone, we have Senator Joseph Vitale, who's chair of the Health, Senior Citizens, and Human Services Committee in the Senate. So something I'd like to ask both of you. We have a lot of our advocates are on the line with us today. What can you tell them that they can do today and going forward to help you folks move this legislation in a positive and meaningful way?
Well, I think a personal testimony is always important. We have committee hearings about any number of different types of bills and issues. Folks come forward, whether they're people who are in the industry, whether they're lobbyists or whether they're family members. Probably the most moving testimony And important testimony comes from individuals who actually live that issue every day. You know, someone that's not paid to do it, that's not a bad thing, but when you hear someone who can tell you what it means to have particular illness or disease or burden or issue, that gets our attention, because it's a human thing. It's not just someone up there reading from a script, and it's very powerful. And so I'd say that when we have committee hearings, that the association and some of the advocates on the call and family members come to testify. I got to tell you, this is a no-brainer bill, right? I mean, it didn't get done, but it will get done, we believe. But it's still important that folks come forward and tell the story so that we're reminded of what the issues are on a personal level. We know this intellectually, what Alzheimer's is, what it does, what it means. But when you hear the stories from families, that really gets our attention and drives home the point in a personal way. And that's much more powerful. So I'd say, do that, come to the hearings, write to your legislator, and there are two bills. As the senator, you want to mention the Senate bill number, or the assembly person, indicate what the assembly bill number is and why you're supporting it, asking for their support and their help, and you'll likely get a response.
Assemblywoman, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think he pretty much said everything. Senator was right on point. I will just add, for myself anyway, this is what I think. If you're going to email, and my colleagues will probably not speak to me, but I'm going to say it. If you're going to email your legislator every other day, hit reply again and send it to them. Just be relentless. I think if you're relentless and you're constantly, we get so many different emails and we are pulled in so many directions. But like I said, out of sight, out of mind, even though this is a no-brainer, just constantly let people know how important it is. Be loud about it. Be persistent. If you are going to have someone speak at a committee, I would say show up in busloads, wear your purple shirts, and even if it's just 10 people speaking, but the rest of them are just filling up that room, just so it is such a presence. And it just, people will be talking like, oh, what's this group? What are they doing? And it's just constantly, you just have to be loud. I just say sometimes you just have to be loud and relentless and persistent, and just so we can get this done. And I know it's a no-brainer, but just to show how important it is, we can't sleep on this. So we just got to keep pushing.
There you have it, folks. So we need to turn Trenton purple. We've received a lot of positive responses in the chat since hearing both of you from all the folks that are on the line. So your comments have been so well received by everyone. I know that the Senator has a hard stop coming up. If somebody has a question, we probably have time for one question. If the Assemblywoman and the Senator don't mind, please put it into the chat. I'll read it. And if not, we will thank them very much for their time with us today.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having us and for having me. And I look forward to working with you as the bills come up. We will get it on our agendas and we'll move them forward. So thanks, everyone. And just thank you for doing what you do in terms of the advocates, but also those family members who are dealing with this issue, and your commitment to your family, commitment to your individual, your loved one. It obviously, makes all the difference in the world to them. And even if they don't know it, it does. So thank you again.
Thank you, Senator. And to your question, the assembly bills are in Assemblyman Conaway's Health Committee.
Good, perfect.
Yes. Okay, well, seeing no questions popping up, Senator Vitale, Assemblywoman Chaparro, we are so grateful for you being here today. Thank you so much. Feel free to stay with us for the rest of the program. We have a video coming up from the speaker, so something you might enjoy seeing too. And have a great day. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you so much.
Take
Thank you,
care.
everyone. I'm going to stay for the video.
Super. Okay. So now, now we're going to slide 7. And I will be turning things over to my colleague, Karen Golden. Karen?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Karen Golden, and I'm the Advocacy Manager for the state of New Jersey. We're so excited to have you all here today, and just a huge shout out to Senator Vitale and to Assemblywoman Chaparro. It is always wonderful to have such strong champions on the line with us. As Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver said this morning, nationally, Alzheimer's and dementia caregivers provided nearly $257 billion in unpaid care in 2021. Think for a second how many hours that involved. In New Jersey, there are 361,000 dementia caregivers. Each one provides an average of 37 hours of unpaid care per week. As we heard from Ron, and we're about to hear in just a second, each caregiving journey is so very unique. Today, we're very fortunate to have two additional advocates joining us to share their very unique caregiving journeys and their stories. First, I'd like to invite on the line Connie Robeson, and she will be followed by Frances McInerney, and they're going to share their caregiving journeys with us. So I'm going to turn it over to Connie.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I just wanted to say hello to all our senators and assembly people and our New Jersey state legislators and everyone who's able to attend the State Advocacy Day. So I wanted to start out with a quote. Many of you may have already heard this before, but it just reminds me of the things that are happening in this world. And this quote is by Rosalind Carter, and it says, "There are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, and those who will be caregivers, as well as those who will need a caregiver." I find myself under the category of being a current caregiver. So my name is Connie Robeson, and I am a senior living advisor, but I'm also a caregiver for my spouse, my husband, for 8 years at home, and now 1.5 years at a memory care community. So just a brief description of my husband. I mean, I just always feel that they're so important. My husband was, but prior to this diagnosis, he was loved by everyone. He was a very intelligent man. He worked at a major financial institution as an IT professional. He was a vice president there and a department manager. And then I noticed small changes in his speech. And actually, he was at this company for 43 years. In 2012, he was downsized. And I believe it's because they noticed the changes in speech and in his ability to find words, and that his memory was getting bad. I mean, he actually couldn't even remember speaking to like his children from day to day. So after this diagnosis, well, his first diagnosis in 2015 was a dural arteriovenous fistula. And that's just an abnormal connection between arteries and a vein in the brain. And so the doctors all felt that, well, this is the cause of the memory loss. So after several surgeries to correct this condition, he then ended up with aphasia. But during this time, he also had a PET scan. And the PET scan determined that he had the amyloid beta plaque that most people have when they have Alzheimer's. At this time, we have a diagnosis, but it was such an uncertain diagnosis that we really didn't know how to proceed. And the doctors were even a little confused by it. So early diagnosis is critical. And I feel it's critical because it allows you to establish and plan what you and your family will be doing in the future. So one of the ways that I dealt with our situation, while my husband was home and I still had to work, I was actually able to get him into a senior center where they would actually pick him up every day and he would spend the day there. He was also involved in an adult daycare center, and then I also had home care. And then COVID hit. And once COVID hit, everything shut down. There was no longer a senior center, an adult daycare. or even a home care aide to come in. That is when I saw the most rapid decline, was the isolation at home. I had to see my husband become a person that he was no longer active. While he was at the activities at the senior center, those things kept him active, and it kept his brain more active than just sitting home and not having anything to do. So I determined that, and I'm a senior living advisor, that I had to take my own advice, which is the same advice I offer to my families. When you can no longer provide your loved one with the proper care that they need and deserve, then it may be time to consider care outside of the home. But providing that care, either in the home or outside, is an unexpected financial burden, and it is just as emotional. So the burden of caregiving for me just shifted from concern about what was happening at home to help to understanding and managing his care along with the memory care community professionals where he is now. And I just feel that public awareness is such an important issue, and that, people need to know that Alzheimer's is not an old people's disease. If people are developing Alzheimer's early onset in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. So, and I also just wanted to mention that caregivers also need support emotionally and also, if needed, financially. And even though I speak from the perspective of a caregiver with a loved one who has Alzheimer's, being a caregiver of any kind can be an exhausting and overwhelming situation. I'd just like to thank you all for your time today and your support. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Connie, for sharing that. We would agree with you wholeheartedly that early diagnosis is critical. You spoke of COVID and the impact of social isolation. That is something that we as an association, particularly here in the state of New Jersey, have worked on. And definitely it's that unexpected financial burden. That is something we hear often from our caregivers. So thank you for taking some time this morning to share your journey and to share your husband's story. You said something really important that, Alzheimer's is often diagnosed at an earlier age. It's not a disease of aging. That's something we always try to stress, is that it's not part of the normal aging process, and that yes, indeed, people can be diagnosed prior to 65. And to hear, to share that perspective this morning, the perspective of a caregiver that is an adult child whose parent was diagnosed at an early age, is Frances McInerney. And Frances, I'm really pleased to turn the mic over to you so you can share your story and your father's journey.
Thanks, Karen. And thank you everyone for participating this morning. I guess I would like to say that I'm happy to be here, but I'm not really happy to be here because I have to share just a story about an awful disease. So I'm Frances. I am from Cinnaminson in South Jersey, and I was a primary caregiver to my dad, John, who passed away last August at the age of 63. So similar to Connie's husband, he had early onset Alzheimer's. I'm sure there's probably so many very shared experiences that we can all relate to about worrying about safety, planning and strategizing your meals, or working through various hygiene tasks, or figuring out activities that you can do with your loved ones. And also just the late night, middle of the night, creaking floorboards when you hear somebody wake up and you're going to have to coax them back to bed, and you have to be up at 3 hours to get to your own job, and all the struggles that entails. But I guess for me, one of the differences is just where I was at in life when I was taking care of my dad. He was diagnosed when I was in my late 20s. So that's when my caregiving journey began. And most caregivers that I meet are a little bit older. My mom and I were care partners, so she's about to turn 60. So we like to say that she's older, not old per se, but just at a different stage of life. We all know that Alzheimer's robs people of their memories. And usually when you're in that older stage, you're kind of reflecting back on the life that you used to have with the person that you're caring for. But for me, I won't have the opportunity to make those memories with my dad. So there are so many milestones and life events that we won't get to experience together. And that is something, one of the many things that Alzheimer's has taken from me and from him as well. He won't be able to walk me down the aisle. He will never meet any grandchildren, whether they're mine or my siblings, and neither will our children meet him. And I was really thinking about this, and this is because he has passed away at this point, but even when he was alive and working through and dealing with this disease, a particular memory that I was sort of kind of able to make was about going to purchase my first car. He taught me how to drive, and he was a good driver. He was a really excellent parallel parker, but that kind of made learning to parallel park a little challenging. But you kind of just think he taught you how to drive. He's going to help me when I go and buy my first car, and he couldn't. And he was acutely aware of this. I was aware of this. We were very fortunate to have just like wonderful neighbors who were able to help me navigate and sort through all the negotiating at the dealership and looking up all those facts and figures. But it's just a significant milestone that he, while he was alive, wasn't able to participate in. And the fact that I'm going to live with that for a while, once again, incredibly grateful to my neighbors, but something I did not experience with him, and all of the future things that I will never experience with him, is just something that I'm going to have to work through for the rest of my life. And so I shared this little sliver, this little part of my story with you today, because I feel it's really important to advocate for the younger caregivers, for the individuals who can no longer advocate for themselves, the people with the disease. And we need to be their voice. We need to be voices for each other, and just keep working to pass legislation to find the cure one day, someday out there, so that other people will have the opportunity to make memories with their loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Frances, so much for sharing a glimpse into John's journey and your story as a caregiver. Both to you and Connie, thank you so much for sharing your stories. And we agree wholeheartedly that it's so important to use our voices to honor those that are living with the disease, and to really ensure that we strive for what we all envision is that world without Alzheimer's or other dementia. As you started out your presentation by saying it's an awful disease, and we're here to fight. We're here to fight to change the trajectory of that disease. So thank you both for joining us in that fight. We greatly appreciate it. It's now my honor to introduce a very special guest by video, Assemblyman Craig Coughlin, Speaker of the New Jersey Assembly, has some special remarks to share with all of our advocates on the line today.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for your advocacy. 190,000 New Jerseyans live with Alzheimer's, and thousands more indirectly feel its impact, whether they are family or friends of those who are suffering or their caretakers. My family is one of those thousands who have been touched by this disorder. I saw the impact of Alzheimer's on my mom. Watching her suffer, my role model, someone I loved and revered deeply, was challenging and heartbreaking. I don't know what we would have done without the health care and support that we had to help look after Mom. Advocates do important work in their communities on the ground, work that includes raising awareness and encouraging leaders like myself and my colleagues in the Assembly to take action so that those impacted by Alzheimer's and dementia have the help and the support that they so need. New Jersey has come a long way on the issue, but I recognize we have to keep improving. I'd like to thank the Alzheimer's Association for continuing to champion this issue. Together, we will work to make the lives of everyone impacted by dementia so much better. Thanks again. Keep up the good work.
Many thanks to
Hello.
Many thanks to Speaker Coughlin. As you just heard, your voice does make a difference. So why is advocacy important? We all know that Alzheimer's disease is one of the most significant public health crises facing our country. Our advocates are indeed the heart of our public policy operation, and that it's because it's people like you that the Alzheimer's Association is the leading voice for dementia advocacy, speaking up for the needs and the rights of those affected. Public policy or advocacy has been identified as a critical lever to advance our mission and vision at the Alzheimer's Association. Your voice is invaluable to our efforts to influence policy change on both the state and the federal level. As you have heard, the most powerful tool in our public policy toolbox is our advocates and your story. What is advocacy? Advocacy is the process of stakeholders making their voices heard on issues that affect their lives and the lives of others at the local, state, and national level. On the grassroots level, it's a network of volunteers united behind a single cause. In our case, a world without Alzheimer's or other dementia. It means educating staff and elected officials, building awareness, advancing critical policies. Advocacy is action. With the help from advocates like you, we have secured public policy victories at both the state and the federal level to improve the lives of everyone impacted by Alzheimer's and other dementia. As you are likely already aware, Alzheimer's public policies will be a priority only when we engage our elected officials. With millions of people affected by the Alzheimer's crisis, the time to act is now. If you're interested in learning more about our advocacy efforts, please visit allsimpact.org/volunteer. And one of my wonderful colleagues will put that into the chat. So you can join our advocacy efforts and add your voice to ours. It is now my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Robin Cohen. She is the Director of Programs and Services here at the Greater New Jersey chapter, and she's here to share a little bit more about the resources provided to anyone impacted by Alzheimer's and other dementia. Robin?
Karen, thank you so very much. And I'd like to thank everyone that has been spending time with us today. We are committed to our families here in New Jersey, and it is truly my pride every single day to be able to focus on our families. Please know the Alzheimer's Association is focused on supporting all of our constituents, people living with Alzheimer's disease, and their family members. Our priority is to ensure everyone knows we are here for them as they face Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. And this includes key resources that the Alzheimer's Association has available to all of our family members. Next slide, please. One of our key resources is our 24/7 helpline. That number is 800-272-3900. It is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by compassionate experts. Please know that our helpline specialists and master's level clinical specialists offer confidential support and information. We have a bilingual staff and translation services in over 200 languages. As we know, we are living in one of the most diverse states in our country. It is very important that we provide our families with care and support information that they can certainly act upon. We have a live chat available. And please know, this is our best asset. We provide crisis interventions, care consultation services, early stage engagement programming, community education events, and conversations with our community members through all means. Information and referrals to local community resources is at the heart of what we do with every conversation that we have with our families, including connecting our families to local support groups. Please help us by passing this forward, sharing our 24/7 helpline number with everyone that we talk to. Thank you. Next slide, please. One of our most powerful opportunities that we feel is so important to be able to help our families is to provide the information and the education that our families need through in-person programming as well as virtual programming. We have free online e-learnings that are available at alz.org. They include understanding Alzheimer's and dementia, 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's and dementia, helping our families to take that next step, how to have a conversation with our family members, how to effectively communicate with our family members, legal and financial planning with volunteer elder lawyers who help us to better understand the importance of early care planning, and behaviors, helping our families navigate the behaviors that they experience within their family unit. ALS Navigator is a resource to help our families navigate the next steps on the journey of Alzheimer's and all related dementia. It is very important that we inform our families, that we educate our families, that we are here for our families and our loved ones, persons living with Alzheimer's and dementia, so that they can take that next step and have access to care and support services. Next slide, please. The benefits of a support group. Every day, the Alzheimer's Association offers peer-to-peer exchanges of not only information, but certainly the opportunity to voice our challenges and to help our families with possible solutions, helping them to take that next step forward, to be able to be heard. It helps our caregivers work through the emotions and sharing various coping strategies. We always emphasize the importance of self-care, especially during the time of COVID, maintaining not only physical health and well-being, but also mental health. To find a local support group, please visit alz.org/CRF. Our community resource finder is a repository of resources and services, and certainly families can enter their zip code and find that local group to be able to help them when they need it most. Always call the helpline, and we can certainly connect you to the support groups that are available in our communities. Next slide, please. This is our community resource finder. It is a portal, a repository of local services and resources. We want to be able to serve our community in any way that they need them, to be able to reach out to medical services. How do I find a neurologist? How do I find a geriatrician? What about care at home? How do I find local resources? What about different assisted living communities and housing options? And what about community services? How can I find my area offices on aging? How can I find the community services that I need? Please know alz.org/CRF is available to all families. Kindly call the helpline, and we can certainly source all of the information that is available in your community for you to help our families. Please consider us your information and education partner, and never hesitate to pick up the phone or certainly to contact the Alzheimer's Association. Next slide, please. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Casey Snyder, our Director of Development.
Thank you, Robin. The Walk to End Alzheimer's event, held annually in more than 600 communities nationwide, the Alzheimer's Association Walk to End Alzheimer's is the world's largest fundraiser for Alzheimer's care, support, and research. This inspiring event calls on participants of all ages and abilities to join the fight against the disease. While there is no fee to register for the walk, all participants are encouraged to raise critical funds that allow the Alzheimer's Association to provide 24/7 care and support and advance research towards methods of prevention, treatment, and ultimately a cure. Here in the state of New Jersey, we have 7 Walk to End Alzheimer's events this fall, and I encourage you to join us by visiting alz.org/NJ Walk. Next slide. The longest day is the day with the most light, the summer solstice. On June 21st, thousands of participants from across the world come together to fight the darkness of Alzheimer's through an activity of their choice. Together, they use their creativity and passion to raise funds and awareness for the care, support, and research efforts of the Alzheimer's Association. For more information, visit alz.org/TLD. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to Karen Golden.
Thank you, Casey, and thank you, Robin, for sharing all of that wonderful information. We appreciate everyone hanging in with us to the very end, but now we have some action steps for you to take. Now is the time to put advocacy into action. Today, we heard about 2 pieces of legislation that are critically important to the Alzheimer's community here in New Jersey. We heard about the Alzheimer's Disease Public Awareness and Education Act, and we heard about another piece of legislation that establishes an Alzheimer's and Dementia Care Long-Term Planning Commission in the Department of Human Services. We need you to take action and urge your elected officials to support these bills. How will we do that in a virtual world? We will use digital advocacy tools. Through the phone to action system or P2A, we can mobilize our advocates through text and email to connect them directly with their lawmakers at the state and federal level. In seconds, you can send a personal message to your elected officials via email or Twitter. Essentially, this system makes it easy for you to engage with your lawmakers. By now, some of you should have already received a text message or an email from the Alzheimer's Association urging you to take action. A template letter will be available through this alert to make it easy to email your legislator and highlight our policy priorities. One of the most important things you can do is tailor that letter to your legislator, and most importantly, add your story. Legislators receive many letters and other forms of communication from numerous different advocates regarding a vast array of policy priorities. Your story is what separates you from all those other advocates. So let's just take a moment, get out your phone. If you haven't taken action, now is the time to do so. And if my colleague Erin can pop in our text to advocate code, in case you did not receive our action alert, we're going to pop a code into the chat box where you can text the keyword to 52886 to receive this action alert. When you take action, you'll be linked to our campaign landing page. All you have to do is click on the envelope to send an email, click on the bird to send tweets. Please note though, if you are using your mobile phone, that you must be logged into your Twitter account in order to connect directly to Twitter. After you've sent your emails and tweets, you will be given the option to share them on your social media accounts. We encourage you to do so. This creates the exponential number of emails going to our elected officials. Thank you all for joining us in the fight to end Alzheimer's. Now I'm going to turn it back over to our Executive Director, Cheryl, for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Karen. And thanks to all of you for joining us. Today's event speaks to the true power of collaboration. Change occurs when caring and committed people work together to drive progress. And that's what we've done today. As advocates, community partners, Alzheimer's Association staff, and state legislators will continue our great work together, and we will build a brighter future for those on the dementia journey. Thank you for making this a priority in your day. Your commitment and your persistence make all the difference. So we sincerely thank you.